problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know the true Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know the true Ali started dropping.
Throughout the history of this country, the majority of us have believed that we were from Africa. I'm not going to start with that discussion tonight because most likely the reason you're here is because you already know we're not from Africa and that in fact this is our land.
Because they all know that you're Moors and they all know that you're home.
Bashar, and he also knows that North America is known as Al-Maghreb Al-Aqsa.
Of course, I know that. North America was known as Al-Maghreb Al-Aqsa, and it reported to the Sultan of Morocco.
And they all know that that constitution that runs this government came from you. But they also know that you think it came from the European.
And understanding that the Constitution is a contract. It's a contract between who? It's a contract between the United States Republic and the United States of America. But there are certain clauses in that contract that apply to Moors, which takes us back to the Treaty of 1787. But that contract between the United States and the United States of America does not apply to us other than that part that discusses the treaty.
The first nation to recognize my country was Morocco. In signing the treaty,
and yet the world's longest running treaty is what? Provable information. Look it up for yourself. Is the Moroccan Treaty of 1787 superseded by the Treaty of 1836, which is the world's longest running treaty and the one that the great heirs won't enforce because they insist on being black.
So it's not relevant for us to go into any courtroom and argue about their ordinances, their codes, their statutes. The only thing we're in there to talk about is, have we violated the treaty? Have we violated that part, which is Article 6 of the Constitution, that applies to us?
And that's why a lot of times when we even talk about the treaty, and you do this because I know you can analyze this, you'll analyze this. That's why when we did the treaty, when we expose the treaty, that we always do the preamble to the treaty, where we show the people that Benjamin Franklin, Tom Jefferson, and John Adams were ministers plenipotentiary under the Sultan of Morocco before the adoption of this Constitution, before Georgie was even smelling that office. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now you understand why they all must be Masons. Now that's documented. And then people sit around there, they don't know we Moors. Oh, please.
And they're obligated when they take that oath of office to uphold that Constitution. And if you start talking about Republican Party and Democratic Party and all that kind of crap, and you start getting into their private matters because it's private policy, and you let them enforce that crap, you just gave up your birthright. This is what has happened to us.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
You need to pay attention to their obligation. The Constitution is their obligation. That's not some instrument that, oh, you know, it's interesting if you all know something about it. And if you don't, oh, it's not important.
The Constitution is their sanction to do business at Morocco. There's that business flag of amity and commerce. Now you understand why you have that Moorish flag, and then you have the stars and stripes. It's a banner. It's not the national flag. This is the national flag. It's your history. You're standing on your own land, trying to go to Africa, and you're standing on Africa.
The counties are ancient. They belong to us. They belong to us. Our ancestors named the counties. Our ancestors formed the counties. Our ancestors set up the government of the counties, and the counties operate according to common law, which is royal law, which is Muslim customary law. Did y'all know that? The counties belong to us.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
Why do you think politicians don't teach Constitution to children in schools? Because that's the document that gives them the authority to do everything that they're doing. Without the Constitution, there is no government. Once you understand that, you understand where you need to be to protect your Moorish birthright.
The first, colonials and the governors of Morocco, because they communicated, because on paper it was part of Greater Morocco. That's known.
That's known.
How come you ain't getting this in school?
because they don't want you to know that you're standing on Morocco, that the land is Morocco, the occupational government is the United States, distinguished from the land. It's a foreign religious corporation belonging to the Jesuits.
The first nation to recognize my country was Morocco. In signing the treaty,
they've forgotten that our ancestors trounced an empire.
And we're the ancient ones. And Anasazi means ancient ones. It's not the identity. Washita or Wichita, we're the most ancient people on the planet. But that doesn't mean we weren't by other names. But the latest government under which these tribes here fell is the Moroccan Empire, sometimes listed in world history as the Ottoman Empire. That's why when you go into treaty laws, it'll talk about Egypt, which is the capital empire of the Moroccan Empire, and all other former parts of the empire. It'll tell you right there in the law.
And the Moorish birthright is to protect the Constitution and to enforce the Constitution. The abuses that you've been getting is because that document has not been enforced. It has not been enforced because you ain't been in your proper person. Y'all been busy being colored people. That's what that Negro, black, and colored status is. It's a status of property as opposed to a free man. But some adults have difficulty handling that. So Negroes, blacks, and colored people, which are it's, they're not human beings, have no rights before any human being on the planet. Not because they don't like you, because you agreed to that by claiming to be something that you are not. What you need to know that it had legal and lawful implications, and this is what they didn't tell you. They just told you it was an opinion, you know, people ill about you and all that kind of crap, and you believed them and gave up your birthright. That's what the so-called Negro problem actually is, from a legal and jurisprudence point of view. And they also think that you think that that Constitution regulates him and you're outside of it, and that you're waiting for a program for somebody to give you some rights temporarily. Governments do not give rights. Governments are established to protect existing rights. Governments do not give rights. Governments are established to protect existing rights. Those rights are inalienable, that is in reference to government. And the inalienable right is derivative of your birthright, which means it's non-transferable. It can't be sold to you. You can't license it. But some adults have difficulty handling that. As the people begin to become more aware of constitutional principles, and we're talking constitutional principles, and when you talk about constitutional rights, remember this: the Constitution does not give you rights. The Constitution is in place to secure pre-existing rights. And rights do not exist with anyone in a civilized society who's transacting business in an alien name. Meaning, if you're not in your proper person, don't talk about constitutions because it doesn't apply to you. If you make a claim of rights from a constitutional perspective, you are in error. You are operating conceptually that this is supposed to be this way because this is government, you know, and you got paper. They don't really represent you, they're thieves that took over your government. And then, as an example, you see the Constitution says, Article 4, Section 4 guarantees for every state in this union a republican form of government.
The Constitution for the United States of America, North Continent, presented in 1787, ratified in 1791. Article 4, Section 4. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion, and on application of the legislature or of the executive, when the legislature cannot be convened, against domestic violence.
And then you turn around and you tell your children this is a democracy because the politician told you that. And you don't even challenge it even in your own mind. That's slavery. And it's a pact you just made with them. And so you've agreed to a fraudulent jurisdiction that they created. And then it makes it legal because you agree. You're under occupation. And you're referred to as the Great Masonic Secret.
You understand? That's why all the leader guys that from our community, you understand, while they talking trash and talking about Jesus and all our love and everything secretly, they be going to lodge. Oh yeah. Learn about the mountaintop. And with the eye of Allah, because they seen the promised land, because they know the land belonged to you. But instead of the promise, they give you a mortgage on your own land. And mortgage means debt promise, which you'll never fulfill it, then they take it back under its cheating. And this is how they've been taking all the land and property from us. That's why we need to learn what does cheating mean, how government structure, how it operates, so that you can begin to counter it. You know, it's like this, if you teach me to box, right? And you say, Taji guy, man, keep up your left. No, man, I'm just, it's going pretty, man, like this, And then I go, man, he hit me, the ref hit me with a sneak, man. You said, no, he just doubled up with it. And ego really gets us in trouble.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
You can't use the name of another nation and start talking about, I got rights. Because the right comes from your honor of your mothers and fathers. And if you don't honor your mothers and your fathers, no man has any obligation to honor you. Because the law comes from your mothers and your fathers. Because they put their trust in those names. And since you don't trust it, you don't believe it, fine, you ain't got no rights. And we sitting around talking about colors. And they're just taking advantage of our ignorance.
Because you can't be free transacting business in another nation's name. It's state property.
Of course, it doesn't seem that way on the surface, does it?
Why don't you like to be called Clay anymore?
No, Clay was not my name.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
And coming to knowledge of ourselves, then we want to be called after names of our people, which are names that fit us black people. And Clay was a white man's name. It was a slave name. And I'm no longer Clay. I'm no longer a slave. So now I'm Muhammad Ali.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
Do you answer to Clay anymore?
Well, some people, they still say Clay.
Sports writers still call you Clay.
No, I stopped them because they know better.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
But some people who don't know better, they say, how you doing, Mr. Clay? I may not say nothing because the intention was nice, it didn't mean no harm. Then some walk up. How you doing, boy? How you feeling, Cassius? Meet Mr. Clay, fine boy. Then I have to straighten him out because he's agitating and acting smart and bossy. But it's according to how they approach me.
But some adults have difficulty handling that.
I.e., that's why it's important for people to even study, say, as an example, the Dred Scott case, which is the most important slave case ever to come before the Supreme Court of the United States. And then people start looking at it and start talking about prejudice and talk about Taney, the racist judge and everything. And when if they pay attention to the docket number, it says plaintiff in error. Then if they do the research, the subject matter was absolutely valid in his argument about the Missouri Compromise, etc., even with slavery not being in other corporate states, etc. The issue was his status. And so if you just look at it objectively, you recognize he failed by claiming to be Dred Scott, which is an Englishman, because he ain't Scott.
No, I will not go 10,000 miles from here to help murder and kill another 4 people simply to continue the domination of white slave masters over the darker people of the earth.
And we need to understand that the world is run with discipline, not beliefs, not feelings, not emotions. You understand? We're not going to march our asses out of this, and we ain't going to pray our asses out of this. We're going to be thinking our asses out of this and working our asses out of this and loving each other our asses out of this.